The promise of return, understanding Jesus' ascension and coming back. When Jesus ascended into heaven, he left his followers not just with a memory, but with a profound promise that shapes Christian belief today. Acts 1:11 stands as a pivotal scripture assuring us of his return. Let's delve into the significance of his ascension and the promise of his return, exploring how these events impact Christian faith and life. The event of Jesus' ascension marks a critical moment in the New Testament. Jesus visibly and bodily ascended into heaven, as described in Acts 1:9-11. Observed by his disciples, this event wasn't merely symbolic. It was an actual historical moment that carried deep theological meaning. His ascent into the clouds wasn't just a departure from earth, but a movement towards his divinely appointed role in the heavenly realms. This ascent signifies his return to divine glory, transcending the earthly limitations he assumed during his life. The act of ascending was witnessed by his disciples, ensuring that there were accounts of this miraculous event which would be shared and recorded in history. The clouds often represent divine presence in biblical narratives. Thus, Jesus disappearing into the clouds speaks of his return to the spiritual realm, where he exercises divine authority. Through his ascension, Jesus affirms his divine authority. This event isn't only about leaving, but ascending to a throne, indicating his continued reign in heaven. Ascension is less about absence from the earth and more about his omnipotent presence from a vantage point of power. Having completed his earthly mission, Jesus continues his role in God's divine plan, where he advocates for humanity. Seated at the right hand of God, Jesus holds the power to intercede for us, acting as a mediator and advocate. This belief is central in Christian doctrine, comforting believers that they are not left alone, but are supported by Christ's continuing presence and advocacy. The angel's message to the disciples that Jesus will return in the same way as he left is central to Christian eschatology. Acts 1:11 ensures believers of the certainty and physical reality of his promised return. This promise isn't a metaphorical notion nor a symbolic gesture, but a literal assurance of his re-entry into the world. Jesus' return is tied to the fulfillment of God's ultimate plan for humanity and the world. It underscores his commitment to restoring and redeeming creation. This anticipated return is not just about Jesus coming back, but about completing the work he started, establishing a new era of divine justice and peace. The promise of Jesus' return also involves his role in future judgment. His return signifies not only joy and completion, but also accountability. It assures Christians that justice will be fulfilled and God's kingdom will be established on earth. Future judgment reflects the belief that Christ will return to judge the living and the dead, bringing ultimate justice. This assurance of judgment calls Christians to live righteously, knowing that their actions will be accounted for. It provides a moral framework within which believers operate, encouraging them to strive for righteousness and align their lives with God's expectations. Thus, the anticipated judgment impacts not only future hope, but present behavior. The promise of Jesus' return is a powerful source of hope for Christians. It comforts and encourages believers, assuring them that their faith and devotion are not in vain. This hope influences how Christians view their future, encouraging an expectation of ultimate reconciliation and peace. The focus on Jesus' second coming also shapes Christian ethics and community life. It urges communities to embody the teachings of Christ, advocating for love, compassion, and justice. This hope extends beyond individualism, encouraging a communal pursuit of righteousness and spiritual living. Jesus' promised return calls Christians to steadfastness in faith. Believers are encouraged to remain faithful, living a life reflective of his teachings. This expectation motivates Christians to live with purpose, adopting a lifestyle that mirrors the love and grace of Christ. Preparing for his return is an essential aspect of Christian life. It involves cultivating a heart ready for reconciliation and standing firm in faith, regardless of life's challenges. The promise of return serves as a beacon, directing believers towards a life of spiritual preparedness. The certainty of Jesus' return influences present-day Christian living profoundly. It encourages believers to live lives filled with love, grace, and compassion, following Christ's example. This direction isn't just about personal conduct, but extends to positively impacting the communities in which they reside. Christians are called to be beacons of hope and light, reflecting the principles taught by Jesus through acts of kindness and justice. Living with an eternal perspective leads believers to focus on things that truly matter, redirecting their efforts towards spiritual growth and the betterment of others. The anticipation of Jesus' return fosters a deep sense of hope among Christians. It encourages them to hold fast to the promises of God, knowing that their faith is anchored in truth. This hope is centered on the ultimate justice and reconciliation promised by God. Beyond hopeful waiting, this anticipation prompts active engagement in the world, working towards the ideals Jesus championed. It calls for a life of expectation, where believers actively participate in God's work on earth while looking forward to its fulfillment. In conclusion, Jesus' ascension and the promise of his return are central tenets of the Christian faith. They underscore the assurance of his continued reign, advocacy, and coming judgment. These events intricately shape Christian theology, ethics, and daily living. Believers are encouraged to reflect on their journey of faith in light of this promise. The anticipation of his return should inspire a life embodying his teachings, rooted in hope and directed towards reconciliation and justice. Christians are invited to embrace the hope and peace offered through this divine assurance, living with the certainty of his coming glory. As we await Jesus' return, let us remain steadfast, embodying his love and grace, making the world a reflection of his teachings and preparing for the day when divine justice will ultimately prevail. Embrace this promise, for it brings everlasting hope and guides us toward living a life aligned with his extraordinary love and purpose.